But if they spar, it's easy to hurt those around them or damage property. It's not worth the trouble.
The chubby guy spoke while cracking his chubby fingers.
So you're different. We could build a specialized room, and you could help them practice their skills to perfection. Plus, there are people who just want to relieve stress. They could come too. What do you think,
Daniel? Walker felt a bit tempted because he could take this opportunity to absorb energy. It truly was a win-win situation. However, this chubby guy didn't look harmless at all.
But how do you know I can hold up without getting hurt?
Daniel Walker asked. Richard Fleck thought for a moment and replied,
At the very least, an 8th level attack to you is like a scratch. Also, we wouldn't make you stand there all the time. We could set fixed schedules. Rare things are valuable, so we wouldn't open continuously. Reservations would be necessary. Think about it, doing it this way, wouldn't we earn money from bookings? And a portion of that money would go to you.
After saying this, he winked at Daniel Walker.
You do make a point, but how much can you offer me? Besides, what would I even do with so much money? I'm just a spirit beast, and my owner is just a little girl. How much could we possibly spend?
Daniel Walker had already decided to agree, but he wanted to clarify things first. Otherwise, he'd end up at a disadvantage. Hearing this, Richard Fleck's eyes lit up, realizing Daniel Walker was willing to agree.
Don't worry, we can compensate you by exchanging items instead, like spirit stones or elixirs. That's not entirely out of the question, but how much are you planning to split with me?
Daniel Walker asked.
How about 50-50? After all, you're putting in a lot of effort, but we're not doing nothing either. We still have to handle promotion, attract customers, build the proper facilities, and manage marketing later on.
Hearing this, Daniel Walker shook his head and said,
No way, it has to be 80% for me. 80%?
Richard Fleck exclaimed in shock. Arthur Fleck, standing nearby, glanced over, his smile unchanged. Anna Reed also looked over, but there was a hint of worry in her eyes.
No, that's too much. It can only be split evenly,
Richard Fleck firmly stated.
Then forget it. Go find someone else. I'm not partnering with you,
Daniel Walker said, waving his hand dismissively.
You?
A look of helplessness flashed across the chubby man's face as he said,
Then how about 60-40? We'll take 40. Is that acceptable? Nope. 90 for me, 10 for you.
Daniel Walker shook his head.
Then there's no profit left for us. Cooperation needs to be mutually beneficial. At most, 70-30, this is my final limit,
Richard Fleck argued.
99% for me.
Daniel Walker raised his hand.
How can someone like you even exist? 99%? 70-30 is already pushing it. You can't beat me,
Daniel Walker said nonchalantly. Richard Fleck.
But that doesn't mean you can beat me either,
Richard Fleck retorted, exasperated.
True, but you still can't beat me. So, if I don't agree, you can forget about doing this deal.
Richard Fleck scratched his head, regretfully saying,
Then there's no other way. We don't necessarily have to do this deal. We just wanted an extra source of income. If you don't agree, then so be it.
Chapter 33. All women are sly like eels. Daniel Walker nodded and casually said,
All right, that's fine.
Richard Fleck had returned. Lady Serpent and her maids brought out the food. These dishes were infused with spiritual energy, though most only carried a faint trace of it, yet they were far more delicious than ordinary meals. Daniel Walker's portion was food meant for spirit beasts, made entirely of spiritual ingredients, divided into vegetarian and non-vegetarian options. Of course, there were also special dishes exclusively for spirit beasts. Looking at the array of colorful, fragrant dishes spread out before him, Daniel Walker gulped audibly. Since arriving here, he hadn't had a single hot meal, let alone such mouth-watering delicacies. Seeing Daniel Walker's eyes glued to the food, Lady Serpent felt her heart stir. Unable to resist, she placed a hand on her chest, stepped forward, pulled Daniel Walker into her arms, and began feeding him. Although Daniel Walker wasn't entirely comfortable with this, he reluctantly agreed. After all, who could say no to such a beautiful lady? Duhongi glanced at him while eating, his eyes filled with curiosity. The orange cat, meanwhile, looked at him with a sense of grievance. Daniel Walker ignored the stares from everyone, both human and beast, and thoroughly enjoyed his meal. Cultivation might let people go days without eating, but here, there was no such thing as reaching a realm where food was unnecessary. Man is made of iron, and food is steel.
Wow, this is so delicious!
Daniel Walker exclaimed excitedly, as he bit into some kind of leaf he didn't recognize. Its taste was so incredible that he felt like he could bite his tongue, especially since it contained a faint trace of spiritual energy, weak but absorbable.
Then eat more!
Lady Serpent's heart melted at his adorable expression.
Wow, this is delicious too. I feel like my life is complete now.
Daniel Walker squinted his eyes, his ears twitching, which made Lady Serpent unable to resist leaning down to kiss him.
Is this all it takes to satisfy you? From now on, just come to me, and I'll treat you to a meal. You can come anytime.
Lady Serpent said with a sigh while stroking his fur.
Really?
Daniel Walker asked excitedly. Pumpkin's face twisted in annoyance, his fur bristling as he glared at Daniel Walker and sneered.
It's just some snacks for spirit beasts, you country bumpkin.
Daniel Walker spun around and stuck out his tongue at Pumpkin, his adorable expression almost making Lady Serpent scream with delight.
Can I really come find you from now on, Lady Serpent?
Daniel Walker tugged at her sleeve, his youthful voice full of hope.
Of course, you can come anytime. I'll take care of all your meals.
Lady Serpent replied immediately.
You're so kind.
Daniel Walker shamelessly clung to her sleeve, rubbing his head against her and acting spoiled.
You scoundrel, you shameless thing. How dare you seduce my master?
Pumpkin shouted angrily. Daniel Walker, nestled in Lady Serpent's arms, turned to look at him and stuck out his tongue again, teasing him.
Bleh, bleh, bleh.
Pumpkin's eyes turned bloodshot with rage.
Meow meow.
It shook its fur, and the flesh on its body rippled like waves. In its icy blue eyes, the pupils had turned vertical.
Panda! I want to challenge you to a duel.
Pumpkin was genuinely furious now. It was so angry it was about to puff up like a blowfish. Lady Serpent finally turned to Pumpkin, offering a slightly embarrassed consolation.
Pumpkin, be good. Don't be jealous. I love you the most. Liar. All women are liars.
Pumpkin shook its head, refusing to listen.
A duel? What kind of duel?
Daniel Walker asked curiously, his face innocent and pure.
Don't duel with him. Come here, let's eat.
Lady Serpent quickly changed her approach. Pumpkin was so angry that white smoke seemed to puff out of its nostrils. Saying she loved him the most, but now abandoning him for someone new. Liar, truly a liar.
Panda, do you dare accept my challenge?
Pumpkin clawed at the ground, jealousy twisting its emotions.
All right, but I don't think it's a good idea. You can't make Lady Serpent worry.
Daniel Walker replied with naive sincerity. Lady Serpent immediately felt comforted.
Then tell me, what should we do?
Pumpkin cared deeply for Lady Serpent. The first time it opened its eyes to this world, it was Lady Serpent carefully tending to it.
Simple. You're angry, aren't you? Just attack me, but only use magic. If you get tired and I'm still fine, then I win.
Daniel Walker suggested. Lady Serpent disagreed.
No way. Absolutely not. Pumpkin is a level 7 spirit beast. It could hurt you. It's fine, Lady Serpent.
Daniel Walker whined playfully, making Lady Serpent's head spin.
All right, whatever you say. But be careful, okay?
Pumpkin grew even more jealous.
All right. Then I won't take advantage of you. If you win, I'll give you my favorite dried fish snack. What would I need dried fish snacks for? I eat bamboo.
Daniel Walker rolled his eyes.
Don't underestimate it. My dried fish snacks are nurtured with pure spiritual energy, free of impurities. Eating 100 of them can help your little master advance a level,
Pumpkin said arrogantly.
Really?
Daniel Walker's eyes lit up, surprised that both Lady Serpent and this orange cat seemed so wealthy.
Of course. If you win, I'll give you 100 dried fish snacks,
Pumpkin added, feeling a pang of reluctance.
I can barely bring myself to eat them. Deal.
Lady Serpent had already stood up, glancing at Arthur Fleck, who was smiling faintly, and Anna Reed, who looked a mix of touched and helpless. She asked,
Aren't you worried? He'll be fine,
Anna Reed replied.
Is that so?
Lady Serpent murmured thoughtfully. She couldn't discern the level of this spirit beast. It didn't even seem to have spiritual energy. Yet, it didn't appear as simple as it looked. However, he didn't seem to possess any concealed magical artifacts either. Moreover, as far as she knew, there were no magical artifacts in the first heaven that could completely hide their power. Pumpkin had already launched his attack. In truth, he excelled at close combat. His claws and body were incredibly lethal weapons. But he had promised Daniel Walker not to use them. For any 7th level spirit beast, once they reached that rank, they could learn a variety of magical techniques. Daniel Walker sat still, eagerly awaiting the barrage of attacks from his opponent.
Are you sure he'll be all right?
Lady Serpent asked, startled at first, when a 5th level magical technique struck Daniel Walker. But when the glow faded, he remained unharmed.
Yes, Lady Serpent, no need to worry about me. Just make sure Pumpkin doesn't get upset.
Daniel Walker turned back and said obediently. Lady Serpent suddenly felt as though her own son was reassuring her with,
Don't worry, Mom, I've got this.
This sentiment caused her fondness for Daniel Walker to soar. Meanwhile, Pumpkin stood to the side, utterly furious. What was with this panda? Such a schemer.
I was afraid I might actually hurt you.
Pumpkin hunched over, beginning to gather his strength. He had to teach this shameless creature a proper lesson. Chapter 34. You hurt me. After the attack ended, Daniel Walker scratched his head, looked at Pumpkin, and innocently asked,
Are you still angry?
Lady Serpent, upon hearing this, immediately scolded Pumpkin.
How could you hurt a child like that? Look at you, all grown up, yet still picking on a kid.
Pumpkin looked at Lady Serpent in disbelief, his eyes filled with grievance.
You're scolding me? You're scolding me because I'm a panda hybrid?
Daniel Walker's face darkened, and he emphasized once more.
A panda is neither a bear nor a cat, and it's certainly not a hybrid of the two.
Lady Serpent realized she might have been too harsh, but seeing Daniel Walker behaving so obediently, she stubbornly replied,
I wasn't scolding you. I'm just saying you shouldn't bully children. You're already a big cat. You don't love me anymore.
The orange cat sobbed, covering his face, and resentfully glanced at Daniel Walker.
Panda, I'll remember you. And you too, you wretched woman. You're a hateful fat cat. I don't love you either.
Pumpkin shouted as he leapt up and dashed away. One of his talents was speed, so despite his chubby appearance, he could run incredibly fast. Lady Serpent's face briefly showed a trace of annoyance. In that moment, Daniel Walker felt like a shameless homewrecker, seducing someone's partner, and even worse, like a White Lotus villain from a palace drama.
Ahem, it's my fault. I shouldn't have said those things on purpose. Lady Serpent, you should go find him. You two are contract companions. Don't let this cause a rift,
Daniel Walker said sincerely. Lady Serpent looked at him, sighed, thought of his obedient demeanor, and then thought of Pumpkin's antics, which made her feel a bit angry again.
Let him be. I've spoiled him too much. He'll calm down on his own in a bit.
Daniel Walker opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. What should he do? He was starting to feel more and more like a White Lotus villain in a palace drama.
Come on, let me feed you again. What do you want to eat?
Daniel Walker looked at the delicious dishes in front of him and simply couldn't resist. After all, things had already come to this point. Pumpkin and Lady Serpent shared a spiritual connection, so surely nothing could go wrong. This meal, Daniel Walker ate enough for 3 spirit beasts. Sitting beside him, Duhongi had already been eyeing him with a look of reproach.
Eating that much? Do you know how much it costs to feed him?
This was Duhongi's only thought. Daniel Walker let out a satisfied burp, then comfortably laid his head on Lady Serpent's lap as she gently rubbed his stomach. He was so content that he was on the verge of falling asleep. Late at night, Pumpkin sat alone in the courtyard, staring at a lonely little white flower in front of him and sighing.
Are you just like me, abandoned by your owner? Let me tell you, my owner is a total jerk. She promised to love me for life, but in the blink of an eye, she abandoned me and even called me old. I hate her, sniff, sniff.
Pumpkin was on the verge of breaking into tears.
Hate me that much, do you?
Lady Serpent appeared helplessly. After sending Arthur Fleck and the others off, she had hurried to find Pumpkin, only to overhear his complaints. It was truly amusing. Pumpkin shot her a glance before turning his back, his plump figure exuding sorrow. Under the moonlight, his lonely silhouette looked ridiculously funny. Lady Serpent couldn't hold back her laughter. She stepped forward, scooped him up, and pulled out a small dried fish.
Still angry? You think one tiny dried fish is enough to bribe me? Foolish woman.
Pumpkin's eyes were glued to the dried fish, unblinking.
Unless it's 2. Well, then there's no helping it. I only have 1 left. The other 100? I gave them to Dumpling,
Lady Serpent said innocently.
Dumpling?
Pumpkin froze for a moment, then realized, of course, it was that panda. His fur immediately bristled.
You gave my most precious dried fish to that beast. You really don't love me anymore. You lost a bet to him, didn't you? I had no choice but to give them,
Lady Serpent said helplessly.
When did I?
His body stiffened for a moment. He had run away, so technically, that counted as losing.
You hurt me, and now you're laughing it off.
Once again, Pumpkin ran off into the night, still not forgetting to take a bite of the small dried fish. Watching his figure disappear into the night, Serpent's wife helplessly shook her head.
Anna, hurry up, eat all this dried fish.
Daniel Walker excitedly stuffed the small dried fish into Anna Reed's hands, even though the aroma of the fish made him want to eat it too. But he couldn't eat it. This was for Anna to level up.
But this is your spoils of war, you should eat it.
Anna Reed looked at the glistening golden dried fish, emitting a tempting aroma, and pushed them back toward Daniel Walker. Daniel Walker swallowed hard, turned his face away, and lay face down on the ground, clutching his head.
Don't tempt me. Hurry up and eat it.
Seeing him like this, Anna Reed couldn't help but laugh while feeling touched. She shook her head, picked up a piece of dried fish, and put it in her mouth.
Perfect saltiness, crispy outside, tender inside. Are you sure you don't want to try it?
Anna Reed teased as she looked at Daniel Walker squirming on the ground.
Anna! You've changed. You're actually trying to tempt me. Ha ha, get up already. Let's split it in half. I don't really need this bit of spiritual energy, and I've already had too much spiritual food today. I shouldn't eat any more.
Anna Reed said as she helped Daniel Walker up and brought a piece of dried fish close to his mouth. Daniel Walker gulped, his eyes fixed on the dried fish, and opened his mouth to take a bite. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through, and when Daniel Walker bit down, he only caught air. Daniel Walker froze. All he saw was a chubby orange cat clutching the piece of dried fish, staring at them warily.
"You dare steal my food?"
Pumpkin said.
"Why are you here?"
Daniel Walker asked in surprise.
"If I didn't come, wouldn't you have eaten all my dried fish?"
Pumpkin retorted angrily.
"This is because you lost to me,"
Daniel Walker said as he stepped forward, trying to snatch the dried fish. Pumpkin hid the dried fish behind his back and said,
"No way, you have to keep betting with me. Only if you win can you take it. I already won."
Daniel Walker widened his eyes. Although he had the upper hand when attacked, what if this cat kept pestering him and refused to let him eat the dried fish?
"No, that one doesn't count. I'll compete with you again. Only if you win this time will I give it to you."
Pumpkin was unwilling to let both his favorite person and food be taken away by this guy.
"Then you better keep your word this time."
Daniel Walker looked at him with disdain.
"Don't worry, I will definitely keep my word."
Pumpkin stood upright and patted his chest.
"Even so, that's not enough. Your actions make it hard for me to trust you. Here's the deal. If you lose, you have to give me an additional 100 dried fish.
That way, he and Anna wouldn't have to share."
"In your dreams?"
Pumpkin furiously retorted. He looked at Daniel Walker with a pained expression, raising a paw.
"I've never seen such a shameless creature like you. Do you know it takes 3 months to save up 100 small dried fish? And now you want another 3 months' worth? So does that mean you're admitting defeat?"
Daniel Walker heartlessly mocked. After all, this tabby cat should lose some weight, otherwise, it might end up getting sick. As expected, Pumpkin immediately fluffed up and shouted,
"Idiot! Me lose? Fine, I agree."
Chapter 35. In his heart, Daniel Walker chuckled silently, but outwardly, he showed no trace of it. Instead, he looked at Anna Reed and said,
"Sorry, Anna, it seems I won't be able to give you any small dried fish."
Anna Reed noticed the sly glint in his eyes, and felt both helpless and amused, but she still played along and nodded.
"Don't worry, I won't blame you."
Pumpkin, standing nearby, immediately puffed up with pride, lifting its chin and saying,
"Relax, I won't hurt you. Or you can just surrender right away." "No. A deal is a deal. I won't back out. Bring it on,"
Daniel Walker declared with a mock display of heroic sacrifice. Pumpkin placed the small dried fish down and began its attack on him. But 10 minutes later, Pumpkin looked utterly drained, its entire body slumped like a puddle on the table, its belly hanging slightly over the edge, as if it might slide off at any moment.
What level are you exactly?"
Pumpkin's gaze was complicated. Daniel Walker curiously observed the limp cat, now resembling a large, squishy pancake. He reached out to touch it, and was surprised by how pleasant it felt.
"Humph, what's the matter? Have you fallen for my alluring figure?"
Pumpkin said smugly.
"Well, I can't compare to you,"
Daniel Walker admitted. At the very least, he doubted a panda could go limp like this into a puddle-like state.
"Humph. It's not my fault I'm as beautiful as a flower. At least you know your place. But from now on, don't go looking for Lady Serpent. She's my master. You already have your own master."
Pumpkin bared its teeth at him.
"But you still owe me 200 small dried fish,"
Daniel Walker said slowly. Pumpkin, both aggrieved and pained, handed over the bag of dried fish it had just received.
"I'll pay back the remaining 100 in 3 months.
Pumpkin gritted its teeth, but as a cat with pride, it would never go back on its word.
"No problem,"
Daniel Walker readily agreed. But then, With a mischievous glint in his eye, he placed the dried fish in front of himself and Anna Reed.
Anna, let's eat. One for you, one for me.
Ah, Daniel Walker said, as he picked up a small dried fish and brought it to Anna Reed's mouth. Anna Reed looked at him, then at the dried fish, and finally at Pumpkin on the other side. In the end, she ate it. Daniel Walker grinned and popped one into his own mouth.
Delicious. So crispy and fragrant, truly a delicacy of the world.
Pumpkin watched the two of them eat, each taking one, and felt utterly miserable. Especially when the aroma of the dried fish wafted over, its mouth began to water uncontrollably.
Anna, you should eat too. Wow, this dried fish is amazing. So fresh and flavorful, absolutely delightful.
Daniel Walker exclaimed. Anna Reed, half laughing and half crying, ate another dried fish. She glanced over and saw Pumpkin drooling onto the table, its icy blue eyes wide as saucers, glued to the dried fish in her hand. After all, she was just a young girl, and didn't have the thick skin of Daniel Walker, who deliberately teased the poor cat. She took out a few pieces and handed them to Pumpkin.
Here, you can have some too.
Pumpkin immediately felt an urge to raise his paw, but stopped halfway. He was a cat with dignity. He couldn't just break his own principles like that. Yes, he had dignity. Unless it cost him his life.
Ah, dried fish truly is my treasure. It smells so good.
Pumpkin mumbled as he chewed and savored every bite. Daniel Walker cast him a disdainful glance. What a useless creature. Looking at that brave and heroic demeanor earlier, he almost thought the cat wouldn't eat it. Still, he didn't stop Anna Reed from sharing a quarter of the dried fish with Pumpkin. After all, he had indeed tricked her earlier, and besides, this cat wasn't all bad, just overly jealous. Once the human and two beasts finished the dried fish, everyone seemed satisfied. Anna Reed's cheeks flushed slightly as she spoke with some excitement.
Daniel Walker, I want to go into seclusion now. I think I'm about to break through. It might take 2 or 3 days. Really? Then go quickly. I'll be here.
Daniel Walker said eagerly. Anna Reed smiled warmly, nodded, and turned to head into her room. Seeing her so cheerful for a change, Daniel Walker felt reassured that he had made the right decision. He vowed to create a better environment for Anna Reed. After all, she didn't deserve to be treated poorly. Pumpkin gracefully stood up, walking with the elegance of a cat. If not for his overly plump figure, he might have looked quite impressive. Unfortunately,
in light of the fact that you gave me dried fish, I won't beat you up. But you still need to stay away from my master. Oh, and here's a body tempering pill. It's for high-level magical beasts. Take it, so you can't say I ate your stuff.
He was a cat with dignity. Daniel Walker accepted it without hesitation. Pumpkin shook his fur and quickly disappeared into the night. This left Daniel Walker somewhat in awe. How could such a fat creature run so fast? Why couldn't he be like that? Truly, having natural talent was an advantage. With a sigh, he swallowed the body-tempering pill. Immediately, a rush of spiritual energy coursed through his body. Though he didn't feel like he had broken through, his strength had clearly increased significantly. It wasn't a waste, after all. However, he couldn't quite gauge his physical body's toughness or his attack power.
Guess I'll find Grandpa Elliot tomorrow to test it,
Daniel Walker muttered. Surely, Elliot Reed would have a way to measure it. But the next day, before Daniel Walker could seek out Elliot Reed, Victor Reed, his longtime adversary, came knocking.
I heard you've been inciting spiritual beasts to breach their contracts. The clan elders want to see you now,
Victor Reed said smugly, his eyes filled with glee.
Let's see if you dare defy me now. Your life's practically over.
Daniel Walker rolled his eyes and snapped irritably.
What does that have to do with you? Or do you plan to give me a massage? You? Don't act tough. Let me tell you, even if you're a grade 8 spiritual beast, so what? You don't have any attack power, do you?
Victor Reed's face darkened. The incident where he led people to confront a young beast had long become a laughingstock, and his rivals never stopped mocking him for it. They said he was a dignified 7th rank, yet he couldn't even defeat a youngling. Luckily, this time it was discovered that the other guy was actually an 8th rank. So, it was only natural that he couldn't win.
So what? Either way, you still can't beat me.
Daniel Walker sneered, biting off a piece of bamboo with one chomp.
Humph.
He coldly glared at Daniel Walker and summoned his contract spirit beast. While he couldn't handle the situation himself, his contract beast might be able to. A blazing red serpent appeared, its body shimmering with a light that struck fear into onlookers. Daniel Walker immediately burst out laughing. Truly, birds of a feather flocked together. They were actually contract companions. How amusing.
Flame serpent, go! Poison him to death for me.
The fire serpent glanced at Daniel Walker, who was casually munching on bamboo, a flicker of astonishment in its eyes. This guy, how was he still alive? It had already used more than half of its essence, yet he remained unscathed. Ridiculous. Its gaze quickly turned sharp with killing intent. If one attempt didn't kill him, then it would try again. This time, it wanted to see if Daniel Walker could still withstand its poison. After all, last time he had already been affected. Surely, there had to be some lingering effects. Chapter 36, Taking Advantage of Chaos. In Fire Serpent's eyes, a murderous glint flickered as its massive body twisted and lunged swiftly toward Daniel Walker. Daniel Walker appeared tense as well.
Stop right there!
Victor Reed spun around abruptly, his face twisting into a vicious expression upon seeing who had arrived.
Elliot Reed, it's you again!
Elliot Reed's face was equally cold.
So what if it's me? What are you up to this time? Was bullying 2 children last time not enough for you? Now you want to pull the same stunt again?
Elliot Reed had received word early in the morning, learning that the elders were planning to interrogate Samantha Reed regarding her contract beast leaving. He feared that Anna Reed and Daniel Walker would be in grave danger this time. Although the Grand Elder had yet to emerge from seclusion, the other elders always followed his lead without question, as the Grand Elder was a level 9 master. The other elders hoped to gain his guidance someday. Victor Reed's face darkened as he snapped.
Stay out of this. They're about to be expelled from the family anyway. Are you really willing to offend so many elders over 2 worthless outcasts? I trust that with the elder's status, they wouldn't stoop so low as to harm 2 children. Besides, the outcome of this matter is still uncertain. Are you sure you want to take action against them before they're officially no longer part of the Reed family?
Elliot Reed's words made Victor Reed hesitate, a hint of wariness creeping into his heart. He cast a glance at Daniel Walker, his eyes filled with killing intent, but ultimately called off Fire Serpent and left. Daniel Walker watched their departing figures, seething with anger. That man kept coming back to cause trouble. Did he really think Daniel was an easy target? Though, to be fair, Daniel was a vegetarian. Elliot Reed looked at Daniel Walker and sighed.
Yesterday's commotion was huge. The elders are discussing it now. You 2 need to be careful. Where's Anna? She's in seclusion. She's about to break through. Break through?
Elliot Reed paused for a moment. Anna Reed had never advanced this quickly before.
Could it be that you all encountered some kind of fortuitous opportunity?
Elliot Reed asked curiously. Without resources, relying solely on basic meditation and cultivation, especially in a place with such weak spiritual energy, advancing this quickly seemed nearly impossible. Daniel Walker thought for a moment and recounted yesterday's event, where Arthur Fleck and Richard Fleck had invited them for a meal.
They're likely just making an investment. Don't think they genuinely care about you. Their entire family is deeply scheming and is infamous for their hypocrisy. If you manage to overcome this crisis, they'll surely maintain ties with you. But if you don't, they'll absolutely stand by and watch.
Elliot Reed spoke with a meaningful tone. He knew Daniel Walker was more intelligent than most children, but he was still a child. If deceived, he might end up helping others count their gains.
I understand.
Daniel Walker appeared pensive. It seemed that yesterday, they hadn't genuinely intended to strike a deal, but after the upcoming clan elders meeting, things might change.
I was worried something might happen to you all today. Just stay here obediently. I'll stay here with you too.
Elliot Reed genuinely couldn't feel at ease about them. To him, both Anna Reed and Daniel Walker were good, well-behaved children. Despite how the clan treated Anna Reed, her heart remained pure, which was truly commendable. The great path is vast, but only those with upright hearts can walk it. Every celestial gate tests not just strength, but also character. Daniel Walker's eyes shifted slightly.
Uncle Reed, stay here and watch over Anna. Don't let anyone disturb her. I'll step out for a bit and come back soon.
Elliot Reed was about to say something but, considering Daniel's current 8th-tier resilience, decided against it. After all, there weren't many who could harm him, and the boy wasn't reckless by nature. Daniel Walker leisurely stepped out, heading straight for the Martial Arts Hall. The Martial Arts Hall and Spirit Beast Hall were situated next to each other, with some spirit beasts occasionally trading in the Spirit Beast Hall. Between the two main paths lay what used to be the Spirit Beast Hall.
Why are you out here?
A crisp voice rang out. Daniel Walker turned to see Du Hongyi looking at him with concern.
Don't you know that many people know about you now? Some are even saying they want to stand up for the young clan leader.
Du Hongyi pulled him aside. Daniel Walker glanced around. In truth, he had chosen a quieter route for a reason. He had his own purpose.
It's fine. After all, they can't do anything to me,
Daniel Walker said. His physical strength had increased significantly, and he no longer feared them.
That's easy for you to say.
But I still haven't found a chance to get my money back. Du Hongyi muttered to herself.
How about this? I'll teach you a spell that allows you to transform into any beast you've ever seen.
As Du Hongyi spoke, she swayed her fiery red tail, free of any impurities, and chanted a spell. Suddenly, she transformed into the likeness of Daniel Walker.
Wow!
Daniel Walker exclaimed in amazement as he stared at her. This was the first time he had seen such a spell. Up until now, all he had encountered were combat spells, so this transformation magic felt incredibly novel to him. He reached out with his paw to touch Du Hongyi's ear. She immediately reverted to her original form, her fur slightly bristling as she snapped.
What are you doing?
Daniel Walker blinked, suddenly recalling that his own ears were sensitive to touch as well. He awkwardly smiled and said,
I was just curious, that's all. I didn't mean anything by it.
If I didn't need you to earn money, I wouldn't bother helping you. Du Hongyi lightly licked her teeth, then stretched out her white paw. Her paw was white on top, gradually transitioning into a fiery red underneath. She said,
I've already given you the incantation. Why don't you give it a try? I don't think I can. I don't have any spiritual energy left to use right now.
All the spiritual energy in his body had been used to enhance his physical strength, leaving none to spare for anything else. Du Hongyi sighed, feeling a bit exasperated. What kind of anomaly is this guy? He doesn't have even a shred of spiritual energy. Could it be that his immunity to magic entirely stems from his physical body?
I've got it. Do you have any silver? You could go to the Spirit Beast Hall and exchange it for a spiritual energy storage device. When chanting the spell, you can simply use the spiritual energy stored in the device. The energy will directly respond to the incantation, making it very convenient.
Daniel Walker asked in surprise.
How much silver would that cost? It's not cheap. If you're using spirit stones, it would cost 50 pieces. If you're using silver, it would be much more, about 5,000 taels.
Du Hongyi said, her amber eyes studying Daniel Walker carefully. Daniel Walker thought about his utterly impoverished finances, and could only manage an awkward smile.
Forget it. I don't have anything anyway.
He initially thought that if he could store spiritual energy, he could also become a beast capable of attacking others, no longer having to suffer as a punching bag. Who would have thought this thing would be so expensive?
Then you can borrow from me. I'll lend you 5,000 taels of silver, but you must repay it within a month, with interest, 1,000 taels for the month.
Du Hongyi extended her paw.
Are you waiting here just for me?
Daniel Walker was speechless as he looked at her. Du Hongyi smugly wagged her tail, her face practically screaming.
I did it on purpose. What can you do about it?
Chapter 37. Why not allow it?
I don't need to borrow from you.
Daniel Walker snorted. He wasn't stupid. 1,000 taels of silver was no small amount. It could buy a lot of things, and if he owed this debt, who knew how he would repay it? Even if he gave lectures at the martial arts hall or resorted to robbery, it still wouldn't amount to much. 5,000 taels of silver. No, it was 6,000 taels to be exact. Daniel Walker now wanted to find Victor Reed and teach him a lesson. Du Hongyi looked regretfully at Daniel Walker's departing figure. She had hoped to seize the opportunity to pull him onto her side. Daniel Walker strolled toward the martial arts hall. This place usually didn't have many people passing by, but the younger generation of the family would gather here to train in order to protect the Reed family. Daniel Walker hid himself in a tree, his eyes fixed intently on the martial arts hall. Kevin Reed wasn't on guard duty today. After all, yesterday's events were still being dealt with, and he was naturally the first one to bear the brunt of it.
Bah! Who says I can't?
Suddenly, a peacock king flew out from inside, its eyes brimming with fury.
Peacock king?
Daniel Walker immediately became curious. The peacock king landed gracefully on the ground. Even with anger etched across its face, it did not forget its noble demeanor.
After today, whether your master can continue staying here is still uncertain, and you still want wages? Dream on!
A man who appeared to be a steward stepped out, his face full of mockery.
So what if this peacock king is a 7th rank? Isn't it still struggling before me? It doesn't even dare to make a move.
The peacock king was so enraged that it spread its tail feathers wide. The dazzling beauty of its plumage momentarily startled the man, but soon greed overtook his expression as he stared at the peacock king.
If I sold this tail of yours, it would surely fetch a hefty price.
His eyes gleamed with excitement.
Scoundrel! A mere 5th-rank human dares to act so arrogantly before me.
The peacock king trembled with rage. It couldn't believe that these humans had the audacity to act so brazenly.
You don't take a 5th rank seriously, but what about me?
Victor Reed, accompanied by a fire serpent, circled back and happened to see the peacock king, speaking up immediately. In his eyes, the peacock king was just an early-stage 7th rank. While he himself was also an early-stage 7th rank, the addition of the fire serpent meant they could easily overpower the peacock king. Moreover, this peacock king had never demonstrated any exceptional combat prowess within the clan. It mostly relied on its beauty to get by. Aside from its striking appearance and vanity, it had no other notable traits. The peacock king glared at the two of them, its eyes flashing with anger. If it could use its true strength, dealing with these two 7th ranks who relied solely on pills would be as easy as flipping a hand. But it couldn't. This left it feeling aggrieved. Was this truly the fate of a proud descendant of the Peacock King's feather? How had it come to this? But he truly couldn't bear to see his master like that. After all, they were about to leave soon, so he decided to endure it for now.
Why aren't you saying anything? Fire serpent, attack! Rip off its tail for me. I'll make it into a coat.
Victor Reed eyed his tail fur with a hint of greed. After all, it was the tail of a 7th-ranked spirit beast. Naturally, it possessed defensive properties. Using it to make a coat wouldn't only look stunning, but could also be crafted into a powerful defensive artifact.
How dare you!
Peacock King's fury grew even more intense. After all, he was merely equivalent to a human child of 13 or 14 years old. Daniel Walker knew he couldn't just stand by any longer. The Peacock King must have hidden his true strength for some unavoidable reason, and he clearly valued his plumage above all else. If that man really plucked him bald, Peacock King would probably go berserk. Thus, Daniel Walker glanced at the two of them, Victor Reed and the Fire Serpent, who were right beneath his tree. Since he lacked spiritual energy, no one would notice him unless they saw him with their own eyes. Daniel Walker extended his claws. After all, he was an 8th-ranked spirit beast. He might not be able to break through the Fire Serpent's defense, but surely he could handle a mere human like Victor Reed.
You scoundrel, take this!
Daniel Walker roared as he leapt down. Victor Reed and his companion instinctively looked up upon hearing the shout. Victor Reed barely caught sight of a dark shadow descending from the sky, before a wave of searing pain spread from his face down to his neck.
Ah!
Victor Reed screamed in agony, clutching his face as he collapsed to the ground. The skin from his forehead to his shoulder blade had been savagely torn by Daniel Walker, leaving 5 long, bloody gashes. At the end of the wounds, bits of flesh dangled grotesquely. The Fire Serpent immediately fixed its gaze on Daniel Walker and charged straight at him. Daniel Walker didn't hold back either, raising his claws to strike hard. The Fire Serpent let out a cry of pain as its scales were ripped off in patches, with blood seeping out. It realized its offensive spells were useless against Daniel Walker, so it tried to use its old tricks. But last time, Daniel Walker had simply chosen not to fight it. This time, however, was different. Previously, he hadn't known these two were working together. Now that they had come right to his doorstep, if he didn't show them how fierce a panda could be, they'd never learn their lesson. As the Fire Serpent coiled tightly around him, Daniel Walker opened his mouth and bit down hard into its flesh. This guy is truly stubborn. Daniel Walker rolled his eyes, but bit down fiercely, tearing a chunk off. The Fire Serpent let out a painful screech and tightened its grip on Daniel Walker even more. Daniel spat out the flesh, feeling disgusted and nauseous. He had no choice but to use his claws. With a few swift slashes, he quickly turned the Fire Serpent into a bloody mess. The Fire Serpent's eyes turned blood red as it opened its mouth to bite Daniel's head. However, this time, it couldn't pierce his skin. Instead, Daniel used his claws to grip its head tightly and forcefully tore it apart. The Fire Serpent, overwhelmed by pain, released him, its eyes scratched and bleeding. Daniel seized the opportunity to leap onto its back, slashing downward with his claws. Scales flew everywhere, the blood-red scales glinting beautifully in the chaos. The Peacock King stood dumbfounded, taking 2 steps back in shock as he stared at his subordinate. He couldn't believe how ferocious Daniel Walker had become. Thankfully, I'm a good kid who doesn't like fighting, the Peacock King thought to himself. Otherwise, wouldn't my feathers be plucked clean like that snake's scales? How terrifying! Silently, the Peacock King added Daniel Walker to his list of people he could only befriend, never antagonize. He resolved to remain lifelong allies with him. Luckily, Daniel Walker was quite likable. Even though he seemed so different now, the Peacock King still believed it was all due to coercion. Daniel Walker, after all, was just a powerless kid with no spiritual energy. He must have been forced into this situation. Could it be that he came to help because he saw how I was being bullied? Thinking this, the Peacock King's eyes welled up with emotion as he looked at Daniel Walker. I must repay him properly. Meanwhile, Victor Reed lay on the ground in agony, one of his eyeballs dislodged. The commotion naturally drew attention, and soon others arrived. Seeing Victor Reed and his bloody companions, they gasped sharply in horror. Chapter 38, I'll take you away. Actually, the fire serpent didn't cause any serious injuries, just some torn scales and outer skin. However, spirit beasts recover very quickly. It just looked scarier than it actually was. Daniel Walker, on the other hand, was completely covered in blood. His once pristine white fur had turned crimson, leaving everyone around him horrified as they stared at him. This beast was truly ferocious.
Hurry, hurry and get them treated.
Someone finally reacted and shouted, but even after the words were spoken, no one moved. That was because Daniel Walker was glaring at them. Don't be fooled by his small size. His current fierce demeanor made everyone a little apprehensive.
Humph!
Daniel Walker snorted disdainfully, casting them a cold glance before looking down at his own sticky, blood-soaked fur with obvious disgust.
I want to bathe. Is there a place for that?
He asked, turning to Peacock King. Peacock King quickly nodded, feeling distressed at the sight of Daniel Walker covered in blood. This little creature admired his beauty so much, clearly someone who shared his love for aesthetics. He must be feeling incredibly uncomfortable right now.
Come, I'll take you to clean up,
Peacock King said. Daniel Walker gave him a strange look, as if sensing something was off in Peacock King's mind. After the two of them left, the others finally dared to move. When Victor Reed was carried away, his eyes were filled with venomous hatred. Daniel Walker and Peacock King arrived at Peacock King's territory within the Spirit Beast Arena. Only upon entering did Daniel Walker realize that the area was protected by a formation, making it impossible for outsiders to see the scenery within. No wonder such a beautiful place remained undisturbed. It turned out there was more to it than met the eye.
Peacock King, why are you hiding your true strength?
Daniel Walker asked as he lay on the ground sunbathing after a thorough bath. Seeing his drenched appearance, Peacock King felt slightly uncomfortable and used a spell to dry him off. Daniel Walker immediately shook his fluffy fur in amazement and said admiringly,
You guys know magic so well. Of course. Someday, you might learn it too. Don't feel bad.
Peacock King, worried Daniel might feel inferior, quickly changed the subject and said,
My master's teacher was killed by the Great Elder through underhanded means. He stole my master's teacher's power, which is how he became a 9th rank expert. So, we're waiting until we reach the 9th rank ourselves to kill the Great Elder and avenge him.
Peacock King explained.
I see.
Daniel Walker suddenly understood.
But don't you already have the power to deal with a 9th rank expert? Why not take a chance and fight together? You might succeed. Why endure this bullying?
Daniel Walker questioned.
There's no other way. My master's teacher once made my master swear an oath not to harm any disciples of the Reed family. So, the only way is to force the Great Elder to take his own life using overwhelming strength, but that requires us to become incredibly powerful.
Peacock King sighed.
By the way, I noticed your physical strength is extraordinary. I have plenty of pills here that can help train the body without any side effects. They just cleanse impurities.
Excited, Peacock King turned his head, flapped his wings, and said,
What are you standing there for? Let's go. I'll give you something good.
With that, he skipped away while humming a tune, leading Daniel Walker into his cave and handing him a pile of small bottles.
I feel like I'm about to break through again. When that happens, we'll probably leave. I can't take all these with me since my storage space is limited. Plus, your taste aligns with mine, so I'll leave these treasures to you. That way, my precious items won't go to waste."
Peacock King lovingly caressed the sparkling treasures in his cave.
Could I borrow some spirit stones?"
Daniel Walker asked shyly.
"How much do you need? Would 1,000 be enough?"
Peacock King replied without hesitation.
"That's too much. 500 will do. I want to buy a spiritual energy storage device, so I can use magic too,"
Daniel Walker explained, waving his hands.
"Spiritual energy storage?"
Peacock King was momentarily stunned, then excitedly said,
"That's right. Why didn't I think of it earlier? Storing spiritual energy can help you use some simple spells. This way, you don't need to buy anything. The stuff from the Spirit Beast Hall is all scams anyway. I'll give you something."
With that, he dove into a pile of gemstones. Daniel Walker looked at his tail sticking out and wagging up and down. Suddenly, he felt an urge to pluck a strand. Ahem, that wouldn't be good. He's genuinely trying to help me. But that tail kept swaying back and forth, sparkling with light, making it really tempting to touch. As Daniel Walker was struggling with his thoughts, Peacock King suddenly popped his head out, startling him.
"I found it!"
Peacock King leapt up, and the gemstones on him fell to the ground in a glittering cascade. It was so beautiful that Daniel Walker couldn't help but marvel at how truly stunning the Peacock King species was.
"Here, this can store 5th level spiritual energy. Once it's used up, it needs to be recharged. Otherwise, it's only good for one use. Your young mistress doesn't have much spiritual energy, but that's okay. She can recharge it gradually. Regularly depleting spiritual energy and then cultivating again is actually a good thing."
Peacock King rambled on as he fastened a delicate necklace around Daniel Walker's neck. The chain was made of golden threads, strung with small, transparent beads that sparkled like diamonds. At the center was a pink gemstone in the shape of a peony flower, subtly shifting colors, as if it could change hues. It was gorgeous, though it had a, slightly feminine vibe.
"How do I use this?"
Daniel Walker didn't mind its girlish design. As long as it worked, it was fine.
"You just need to recite the incantation of the spell you want to cast. The spiritual energy will first be drawn from you, but since you don't have any, the incantation will redirect to draw from the stored spiritual energy. Let me infuse some into it for you to try."
Peacock King was equally thrilled, feeling that the gift he had chosen was absolutely perfect. The colors on Daniel Walker were too plain. How could they possibly compare to the radiant, multicolored brilliance on him? That's why he specifically chose this spiritual artifact instead of another. The glass bead on it could reflect light, radiating a 7-colored glow, incredibly beautiful. And as for that peony flower, don't be fooled by its current pink hue. In fact, when spiritual energy is infused, it emits a dazzling golden light, guaranteed to blind anyone who looks. Daniel Walker had no idea about any of this. Otherwise, he certainly wouldn't have accepted it. Peacock King infused a bit of spiritual energy into the artifact and said,
"I'll teach you the simplest binding technique. Give it a try."
Daniel Walker nodded eagerly. After learning the incantation, he couldn't wait to test it out.
"Hold on. Let's go outside first."
How else would Daniel Walker realize just how magnificent the gift truly was? Daniel Walker thought Peacock King was worried about damaging the treasures inside. Feeling the same, especially since these items might become his in the future, he followed Peacock King outside. Sunlight shone on Daniel Walker, causing the beads strung on golden threads adorning him to suddenly emit a 7-colored light that reflected onto his face. He stared blankly at Peacock King. Peacock King looked at the shimmering rainbow light on Daniel Walker's face and felt immensely satisfied.
"So beautiful. What do you think?"
Daniel Walker wanted to punch someone, specifically that Peacock King. Chapter 39, Blinded. Fine then, as long as I'm careful during the day, it should be fine. This kind of tool meant for tricking others is still better suited for use at night. But when he cast the spell, a golden light immediately blinded his already dark circles. What's going on? Daniel Walker stood dumbfounded. His panda-like eyes weren't great to begin with, but they worked decently enough at night. But? This thing? Was it poisonous? Daniel Walker almost got both his eyes blinded by that dazzling golden light. Was he trying to deal with the enemy, or was he sabotaging himself? Could this be one of those legendary harm the enemy 1,000, harm yourself 800 techniques? Moreover, if he wasn't mistaken earlier, his binding spell wasn't like the usual ones. Instead, a golden light shot out, growing brighter and brighter until it tightly bound the rock in front of him. When the light faded, it turned into a garish 7-colored rope. Daniel Walker was at a loss for words. If he used this for a sneak attack at night, it would be no different from firing off a flare. Everyone would know exactly where he was. What kind of sneak attack would that be? And what was with this flashy, colorful rope? Am I supposed to have rainbow hair that changes with my mood or something? Isn't it beautiful? It's absolutely perfect. Look, with this, you'll definitely dazzle them to the point of blindness. The Peacock King beside him said cheerfully. If it makes you happy. Forget it. Too exhausting. His mistake was trusting the aesthetics of a peacock, a bird obsessed with beauty above all other creatures. He knew he was wrong now. Poor him, with his classic black and white look, modest, elegant, and understated, with just a hint of orange. And now? Great, he was about to turn into some kind of Mary Sue national treasure. Pandas, forgive me. I've brought shame upon us all. Are you unhappy? Peacock King asked cautiously, his face filled with concern. No, no, no. Daniel Walker, though utterly despairing over the other's sense of aesthetics, couldn't bring himself to reject the kind gesture. Daniel Walker flashed a radiant smile, his face illuminated by the alternating glow of 7 colors, looking as beautiful as a dream. I absolutely love it so much. I was just too stunned to react earlier. It's so dazzling. His eyes were still hurting. That's good then. Peacock King let out a sigh of relief. As long as Daniel liked it, that was all that mattered. He had even prepared a backup 7th grade spiritual energy storage item to gift if Daniel didn't like this one. But that one was hideous. Just a simple black string with a plain round orb attached. So ugly. It seemed this noble being truly shared his aesthetic taste. Too bad Daniel Walker didn't have the ability to read minds. Otherwise, he would have surely knelt down and begged to be given the plain and simple version instead of this flashy monstrosity. And so, Daniel Walker had no choice but to return with the dazzling necklace. Even though he tried his best to avoid others, some people still got blinded by its radiance. Ah! Not good, someone's attacking me. A young man, struck by the 7-colored light, thought someone was using magic to ambush him. Daniel Walker quietly sped up his pace. What the heck? What's going on here? Who's the lunatic shining this light at me? No conscience at all. A monkey resting on a tree was startled awake by the intense light shining into its eyes. Daniel Walker once again moved further away. He didn't mean to cause trouble. Sure, he could be carefree and nonchalant at times, but not to this extent. By the time Daniel Walker finally made it back to the small courtyard, he felt utterly exhausted. Feeling wronged, he looked at Elliot Reed, then rushed forward to hug him tightly. Grandpa 9. What? Elliot Reed hadn't even gotten a clear look at the figure's face when something messy and multicolored, with streaks of black, came hurtling toward him. The dazzling, 7-colored light nearly blinded him. Startled and alarmed, he instinctively cast a defensive spell, forming a shield in front of him. But to his surprise, the unidentified entity passed straight through the barrier and latched onto his head. Elliot Reed quickly unleashed several more spells. Normally, Daniel Walker would have enjoyed such antics, but being treated this way now made him feel incredibly wronged. After all, even Elliot Reed was treating him like this. Perhaps it was time to take off this necklace.
"It's me, Grandpa 9,"
Daniel Walker said with a pout.
"Daniel Walker?"
Elliot Reed exclaimed in shock, reaching up to pull him off his face. However, he wasn't prepared for the intense, seven-colored light that made his eyes ache.
"Oh heavens, who's so wasteful as to use 7-colored crystals to make a necklace?"
Elliot Reed muttered as he shielded his eyes.
"What are 7-colored crystals?"
Daniel Walker asked curiously after landing on the ground.
"They're a type of mineral found in First Heaven, but they're incredibly rare. They have the ability to enhance spiritual energy precision and can even evolve if taken to Second Heaven, or so I've heard, though I've never seen it myself. Artifacts made from 7-colored crystals naturally carry a 7-colored effect, which can help with higher-level attacks."
Daniel Walker's eyes widened in shock. So, this blinding, stun grenade actually had such uses. As expected, Peacock King was as generous as ever, not just good-looking. No, that couldn't be the only reason.
"Step into the shade. Let me take a closer look,"
Elliot Reed said, squinting as he pulled Daniel into the shadow of a large tree. Without the sunlight, the dazzling light finally subsided.
"It really is 7-colored crystal, and the quality is excellent. But what a waste, to use it for an inheritance necklace, ground down into beads no less. Such extravagance! Is your pendant storing spiritual energy? Wait, are these spirit stones? Good heavens! Who would be so wasteful as to carve spirit stones into a peony flower design?"
After examining it for a while, Elliot Reed felt like he might explode on the spot. This is outrageous. Storing spirit stones only requires a small amount to be used for crafting spiritual energy reserves. The better the quality, the more it can store. Who would use an entire chunk of spirit stone directly like this? Truly unheard of.
"Outrageous! How much spiritual energy can this hold?"
Elliot Reed said with a pained expression.
"A 5th tier 1, and it even emits a golden glow. It's blindingly dazzling."
Daniel Walker couldn't help but lament.
"Golden glow?"
Elliot Reed carefully examined it again.
"The stamens are made of temporal gold. This material is almost non-existent in First Heaven. And to have this much temporal gold, did someone rob a treasury?"
Seeing Elliot Reed lose all semblance of his usual calm, elder-like demeanor, Daniel Walker quietly lowered his head to look at the necklace he wore. Indeed, that Peacock King truly treated him well. To the Peacock King, this might just be a decorative trinket, but its value was immeasurable.
"Who gave this to you? Even if our Reed family sold all we owned, we could probably only afford one item like this."
Elliot Reed's eyes showed regret, and even a hint of sorrow, but there was no greed in his expression.
"Ahem, it was a gift from a good friend. He thought it looked beautiful and matched my temperament, so he gave it to me."
Daniel Walker couldn't reveal anything about the Peacock King. Although his great-granduncle was kind, matters concerning the Peacock King were private. Elliot Reed was speechless as he stared at Daniel Walker. Who in the world had such poor taste to think this matched Daniel Walker's temperament? They must be out of their mind. Chapter 40. The Judge's Verdict.
"Do you think so too?"
Elliot Reed looked somewhat worried. If Daniel Walker had questionable aesthetics, would Anna be influenced as well? Thinking about Anna appearing later with a 7-colored glow, it would truly be a disaster. Daniel Walker gave him a speechless glance, rolling his eyes as he said,
"Do you think I like these flashy things? I just need it for now. Once I no longer need it, I'll give it to Anna to play with."
Elliot Reed couldn't think of a reason to refuse on Anna's behalf. Setting everything aside, the item was indeed valuable, but that glowing effect. Daniel Walker understood its value, so he no longer resisted. After all, the glowing effect merely dazzled others. He could just be a bit more cautious.
I want to fully charge it with energy. Grandpa 9, please help me.
Daniel Walker pleaded with a pitiful look, his front paws clasped together, looking utterly adorable. Elliot Reed felt that perhaps he had accumulated enough good karma in his lifetime to meet such a lovable little pet in his old age. Thus, he readily agreed. However, when he infused spiritual energy into the necklace, he discovered that it seemed to be more than just a 5th-grade magical item. Even after infusing 5th-grade spiritual energy, it showed no signs of overloading like regular spiritual storage items. Of course, typical spiritual storage items only had a small spirit stone for storage, whereas this one was much larger, making it incomparable. Still, he didn't dare add more energy, fearing it might cause damage. After all, this was a treasured item. Whether sold or kept, it was undeniably valuable. Of course, if he ever saw Daniel Walker trying to sell it, he'd tear him apart.
Grandpa 9, teach me a few more spells,
Daniel Walker said. Elliot Reed smiled helplessly, but seriously began teaching him a few spells. By evening, the family discussions had concluded. The Reed family decided to put Anna Reed and Daniel Walker on trial, simultaneously questioning Daniel Walker's identity. They suspected that Daniel Walker wasn't an ordinary spirit beast, but perhaps a disguised demon beast causing trouble. This conclusion made Daniel Walker sneer. Trouble? If he had malicious intentions, he would have long turned the Reed family upside down. But regardless, Anna Reed was at a critical breakthrough moment, and Daniel Walker wouldn't allow anyone to disturb her. Thus, he decided to create a diversion. Now he could use magic as well. The illusion spell taught by the little fox was still very useful, though its dazzling brilliance tended to draw too much attention. But no matter, he wasn't really afraid of being discovered.
Watch this, endless transformations.
A golden light flashed. Daniel Walker, already experienced, closed his eyes in time. Otherwise, it would take a while for him to see clearly again. Once he transformed into the fire serpent, he moved his body. Since the fire serpent was injured, his transformation reflected that. His appearance changed accordingly, though his eyes continued to emit a 7-colored glow. This was a side effect of the magic. Daniel Walker sighed inwardly, feeling quite helpless about it. But he quickly came up with a solution. He wrapped gauze around his eyes. He could still see everything, but others wouldn't notice his glowing eyes. He could simply pass it off as the fire serpent having an eye injury. Daniel Walker let out a slight snort. He had already tested the spell earlier in the afternoon. It could last for 2 hours. He swaggered out confidently. Many people who saw him showed signs of apprehension, but upon noticing his injuries, their expressions turned a bit strange. Daniel Walker headed straight to the library pavilion, a place filled with cultivation manuals. He wanted to find a suitable one for Anna. According to Grandpa Joe, Anna was more compatible with water-based techniques. She hadn't yet determined her elemental affinity, as Daniel Walker himself didn't have one. Typically, contracted companions would influence each other. They might support one another, but would never be in conflict. When Daniel Walker arrived at the library pavilion, the disciples guarding the entrance exchanged glances before saying,
"Isn't this Uncle Fire Serpent? What brings you here?"
Daniel Walker flicked his serpent tongue and replied,
"I'm here to find something. What might you be looking for? Shall we help you find it?"
The two disciples treated Daniel Walker with great respect, as he was, after all, a level 7 spirit beast.
"No need. Oh, by the way, where are the water element manuals?" Daniel Walker asked. "Water element?
The two of them were momentarily stunned. Wasn't the venomous flame python supposed to be of the fire element? Why would it need a water element scripture?
What are you standing there for? Tell me already,
Daniel Walker said irritably. The two disciples dared not ask further. Seeing his body covered in injuries, could it be that he needed the water element for healing? But that didn't make sense. He wasn't even human. Daniel Walker entered the area for water element scriptures and immediately widened his eyes, glancing around. The lighting in the room wasn't good, so he couldn't see clearly.
What are you still doing here? Leave already.
He turned around to see the two still following him, and immediately spoke with dissatisfaction. The two disciples didn't dare say much, nodding reluctantly.
All right then, if you need anything, just call for us.
I know. After stepping outside, the two disciples looked somewhat helpless.
Do you think he, being of the fire element, has no idea which water element scripture is good? Letting him choose on his own, won't that be a problem?
I don't know.
Just let him be. Whatever happens to him has nothing to do with us. We've done our part.
Daniel Walker looked through the options repeatedly but still couldn't find anything suitable. Mainly, he didn't understand any of it.
Forget it. I guess the higher something is placed, the more powerful it is. I'll just take the one on top.
The highest shelf was filled with dark golden books, looking very premium. Ignoring everything else, Daniel Walker climbed up and grabbed one. One book. Who could have expected it? The moment he bit down, his teeth struck something hard. If his teeth weren't strong enough, that bite would have chipped them for sure.
What the heck is this?
Daniel Walker grumbled, glaring at the faint golden glow that flashed and disappeared above him, grinding his teeth in frustration. He suddenly reverted to his human form, swiftly climbed up, and reached out with his claws to touch a book. The moment his claws made contact, a deep golden aura enveloped all the books on that level. Daniel Walker felt a surge of abundant spiritual energy directly flooding into his body. He closed his eyes in comfort, but almost immediately, alarm bells began ringing around him. Panicked, he quickly transformed back into his venomous fire python form, grabbed a book, and bolted as fast as he could. The two disciples guarding the entrance turned pale when they heard the alarms. Alarmed, they rushed inside, only to find no trace of the venomous fire python, almost as if it had been summoned away. In truth, Daniel Walker hadn't gotten far before he noticed sharp threads of spiritual energy appearing around him. After some thought, he reverted to his human form and hid in a secluded corner. Since he didn't possess spiritual energy, as long as he wasn't spotted by the naked eye, he should be fine. Clutching the dark golden book tightly, Daniel Walker was still curious about the origins of these books, especially since they even triggered an alarm. Chapter 41, Water Element Cultivation Technique. He opened the black and gold book to take a look, only to find that the contents inside were completely incomprehensible. Left with no choice, he gritted his teeth and, taking advantage of the moment when no one was paying attention, activated the shadow copy technique. A golden light flashed, a dazzling brilliance that naturally caught everyone's attention.
What's going on?
Several disciples were momentarily blinded by the golden light. Daniel Walker squinted his eyes, his heart filled with even more resentment toward this energy storage device. Yet, his claws quickly flipped through the pages of the book. By the time he had finished copying everything, his energy storage device was nearly depleted of spiritual power. Seizing the moment before the golden light dissipated, Daniel Walker used the transformation technique, morphing into the shape of a venomous fire serpent. Clenching the book in his jaws, he bolted away. As the disciples gradually adjusted to the golden light, another flash of brilliance appeared, and they vaguely saw a figure darting out.
Something's wrong. It's the venomous fire serpent. It's trying to escape.
Someone quickly reacted.
Chase it.
But after Daniel Walker fled, he found a secluded spot to revert to his original form. No matter how hard they searched, they couldn't possibly find him. By now, it was late at night. Holding the black and gold book triumphantly, Daniel Walker pondered for a moment and decided to return to the courtyard first. When Elliot Reed saw him return, clutching the black and gold book, his expression immediately shifted.
What is this? Shoo!
Daniel Walker raised a claw to signal silence, glancing around cautiously.
Hey, Uncle Nine, help me recharge my energy storage device with some spiritual power. I need to go find Victor Reed.
He briefly recounted what he had just done, leaving Elliot Reed momentarily speechless.
Copying it won't do you any good.
Elliot Reed sighed, understanding that Daniel's actions were for Anna's sake.
Why not?
Daniel Walker grew anxious and quickly retrieved what he had just copied. On it were rows of text, accompanied by tiny animated figures moving about.
Huh? Why doesn't this look like what I saw earlier? Could this be why it's unusable?
Daniel Walker stared at the tiny figures, puzzled and a bit disheartened. He had thought he could simply copy it and give it to Anna, but now there seemed to be hidden complexities. Elliot Reed glanced at the tiny figures, his eyelid twitching as he explained.
No, I forgot to mention that your energy storage device is imbued with an array of multicolored spirit stones. These tiny figures are actually the true essence. Only by observing their movements can you grasp the authentic cultivation technique.
Initially, he had assumed Daniel Walker would only copy the written text, which was why he had said otherwise.
So that's how it is. Why didn't you say so earlier? You scared me to death. Well, if that's the case, there's no problem then. Quickly recharge my spiritual energy.
Daniel Walker pouted playfully. Elliot Reed chuckled and shook his head. Perhaps Anna really shouldn't live her life like this. He also didn't tell Daniel Walker that this cultivation technique belonged to the Reed family. Only core disciples could use it, and even then, they needed to have a certain destiny to obtain it. However, for so many years, very few people had managed to take the book down, let alone use the shadow copying method to record it.
Let's go! I'll take you there myself.
Elliot Reed couldn't feel at ease letting him go alone. Daniel Walker had no real skills, and that spiritual energy storage was far too conspicuous. Daniel Walker grinned and obediently nestled into Elliot Reed's arms, clutching the book tightly. Meanwhile, Victor Reed had been surrounded. Victor Reed, who had been caught off guard by Daniel Walker's sneak attack, was now healing his injuries. One of his eyes was permanently blinded, and his face bore deep scars that ruined his appearance. His youngest daughter screamed in terror upon seeing him in such a state. As resentment welled up within him, disciples of the Reed family had already encircled him, along with an elder.
Seventh elder, what do you mean by this?
Every time Victor Reed spoke, his facial wounds stung. But seeing everyone staring at him like hungry wolves, he had no choice but to speak up.
What do I mean? Where's your venomous flame python?
The seventh elder, along with several other elders, had gone to inspect the library pavilion of the Reed family and discovered that the restriction on the highest bookshelf tier had disappeared. This meant that from now on, access to the books was no longer determined by destiny. Anyone could take them if they wished. The elders had already cultivated different techniques, making it difficult for them to switch. But this change signified that future disciples of the Reed family might now be able to practice these techniques. However, this was both a blessing and a curse. The Reed family had always adhered to strict rules, and this sudden change was unsettling. Even though they wanted to pave a better path for the next generation, they couldn't address the matter openly just yet. Therefore, they needed to impose severe punishment first before discussing how to handle the aftermath. The seventh elder, who had no descendants and no interest in women, had been assigned to deal with this matter. He was deeply frustrated, This situation had nothing to do with him, yet he'd been dragged into it.
The flame python? It's recovering from its injuries. What's the matter?
Victor Reed's instincts told him something was very wrong.
Humph, is there a problem? Victor Reed, did you order your contracted bees to steal the top-tier cultivation manuals of the family? Do you admit to this?
The words of the seventh elder left Victor Reed even more confused. Feeling somewhat wronged, he replied,
Seventh elder, I've been falsely accused. When did I ever command Flame to steal the top-tier cultivation manuals? Besides, those 10 top-tier manuals are all sealed with restrictions. How could I possibly break them? You even know there are 10 of them? Since they're sealed, no one can tell from the outside how many there are. Everyone just assumes all the upper levels are the same. And you dare claim this has nothing to do with you.
The seventh elder sneered coldly. Daniel Walker and the others, who had just arrived, overheard this and immediately asked curiously,
Ninth great-grandfather, are you saying not all of them are top-tier cultivation manuals?
At that moment, he reached out to grab a manual, thinking there were plenty more.
Of course not. What do you intend to do next?
Elliot Reed glanced at the group of disciples. With so many people around, sneaking in wouldn't be easy.
If I'm not mistaken, Victor Reed recently had a newborn daughter, didn't he?
Daniel Walker still remembered how Victor Reed had tried to make him sign a contract with his infant daughter, which had led to their conflict.
What are you planning? Don't involve his wife and child.
Elliot Reed warned, casting him a sharp look.
Relax, I know better than that.
Daniel Walker wasn't so insane as to harm a baby. He just wanted to give the cultivation manual to the child. After all, Victor Reed was a fire element user. Forcing him to cultivate a water element manual would be rather unreasonable. But if it were for his daughter, that might be a different story.
Seventh elder, you're truly wronging me. I only happened to read in a book that the Reed family possesses 10 top-tier cultivation techniques, corresponding to 10 different elements, but I swear I've never touched any of those advanced techniques.
Victor Reed continued to wail pitifully.
Will you summon your contract beast or not?
The seventh elder said impatiently. Meanwhile, Daniel Walker had stealthily crawled inside. Being naturally small and lacking spiritual power, he easily went unnoticed by the disciples, who were using spiritual energy to monitor the surroundings. Poor Daniel, despite being a dignified panda, had to crawl through a dog hole. The fire serpent was summoned. Its body still bore numerous healing wounds, and its eyes, scratched and damaged, had to be bandaged and treated with medicine. Chapter 42. Wrongfully Accused.
It's him. Today, he came to the library pavilion, and it's already like this.
The two disciples of the library pavilion immediately recognized him. Fire Serpent flicked its tongue in dissatisfaction, sensing its master was in trouble, trying hard to suppress the ferocity within.
Do you have anything to say for yourself? Isn't it true that you commanded your contract bees to steal the cultivation technique?
The seventh elder spoke up immediately.
I truly didn't. Fire Serpent was injured and has been with me all day for healing. Besides, what would I even do with the cultivation technique?
Victor Reed felt deeply wronged.
Hello, little one.
Daniel Walker had found the baby lying in the cradle, who had just woken up. Because of the commotion outside, everyone, all members of the Reed family, was outside trying to prove their innocence.
Ah.
The baby girl, not yet able to speak and just a month old, looked at him. Feeling slightly guilty, Daniel Walker still slipped the book into the baby's swaddle.
Sorry, little one. Blame your father for trying to kill me.
Earlier today, Victor Reed had been beaten up by him, and surely wouldn't let it slide. Previously, Victor Reed had tried to kill him for failing to achieve his goals, let alone now, when their grudge couldn't be resolved. Daniel Walker quietly climbed out the window again. Outside, the situation between Victor Reed and the seventh elder was tense. Victor Reed adamantly insisted on his innocence, while the seventh elder demanded he hand over the contract beast for investigation, something Victor Reed would never agree to.
If you refuse to cooperate, don't blame me for being ruthless,
the seventh elder said coldly, casting an eighth-tier spell to restrain Victor Reed. Victor Reed's face was filled with fury as he shouted in indignation.
Seventh elder, you're pushing me too far. I demand to see the other elders. Search everything.
The seventh elder ignored him and waved his hand. Fire Serpent, seeing the disciples surrounding it, already irritated and aggressive, lashed out directly, sending them flying with its tail. After all, these disciples were only of the 5th tier in strength.
How dare you, vile beast! You dare harm the family's disciples!
The seventh elder's face darkened as he stepped forward. Fire Serpent glared fiercely at the seventh elder. Victor Reed, standing beside it, felt both aggrieved and panicked. He wanted to argue with the seventh elder, but worried about how to resolve the situation if things escalated further. Thus, Victor Reed hesitated to stop Fire Serpent, leading to a direct clash between the beast and the seventh elder. Other disciples of the Reed family were searching Victor Reed's yard. Victor Reed's wife, a woman of modest status, stood at the door of her daughter's room. She was ready to comfort her daughter if she cried, yet she couldn't help but anxiously glance toward her husband.
Step aside.
A few disciples approached her.
My daughter is inside. I'll open the door for you, but please search gently so as not to frighten her,
Victor Reed's wife pleaded. The two disciples exchanged glances, nodded, and said,
All right, open the door.
Victor Reed's wife sighed in relief, opened the door, and led them inside. She picked up her daughter first, then nodded at the disciples. Not all members of the Reed family were overbearing. Only those with strong backgrounds acted that way. Most ordinary disciples came from humble origins or were outsiders, so they understood each other's struggles. After completing their inspection, they nodded at Victor Reed's wife and said,
Apologies for the intrusion.
Forcing a smile, Victor Reed's wife responded. Just then, her daughter burst into tears, prompting her to soothe the child. One of the disciples glanced at the baby and suddenly asked,
Could you open the baby's diaper for us to check?
The diaper was thick. What if something was hidden inside? Victor Reed's wife looked troubled and hesitated.
But the baby is crying. That's fine. Check to see if she might need a change,
an older man suggested, his tone experienced, as he also had children of his own. Reluctantly, Victor Reed's wife placed her daughter in the crib and opened the diaper. To her shock, beneath her daughter was a thin, dark golden book. Though she had never seen a top-tier martial manual before, she instinctively knew this item was extraordinary. Its sudden appearance in her daughter's diaper left her dizzy with disbelief. The Reed family disciples also noticed the book and quickly stepped forward to retrieve it. Perhaps Daniel Walker had stuffed it in too tightly, as half of the book was soaked with an indescribable substance. They exchanged awkward glances, but swiftly exited the room.
Report to the elder. We've found it.
Just as the seventh elder had defeated the Fire Serpent, he quickly turned his gaze upon hearing the news. Victor Reed, equally stunned, looked over with disbelief. He truly didn't take it.
Hand it over.
The seventh elder extended his hand to receive the item, but when he saw something indescribable stuck to the book, his face turned odd, and he froze.
What is this?
The yellow substance on it. Could it really be what he thought?
Ahem, it was found in Victor Reed's daughter's diaper, so...
The seventh elder's face darkened. He spun around to glare at Victor Reed and angrily shouted,
You scoundrel! So you stole it to get the cultivation technique for your daughter. And now you've let it end up in this state.
He glanced at the cultivation manual, utterly speechless, and dared not recklessly use cleansing techniques for fear of damaging the book. Pinching his nose, He waved his hand.
Quickly take it to the other elders.
The seventh elder then ordered Victor Reed to be taken away. Despite Victor Reed's protests of innocence, the elder knocked him unconscious. The surrounding disciples, seeing the seventh elder emerge, quickly made way. The seventh elder strode outside, and happened to see Elliot Reed standing to the side, holding a round bundle. He paused for a moment before approaching.
"Why are you here?"
the seventh elder asked.
"I heard a commotion here, so I came to check it out."
Elliot Reed replied with a sheepish grin, showing no signs of deceit.
"Don't even
bring it up. There's been too much going on lately."
The seventh elder waved irritably, but then his eyes fell on the bundle in Elliot's arms, and he froze. Only Daniel Walker's two innocent eyes peeked out from the bundle, staring at him.
This is Anna's contracted beast. Since Anna is in seclusion to break through, I brought it out for some air,"
Elliot Reed explained. The seventh elder frowned.
"Anna Reed? The family council has already reached a verdict. I can't stop them from reversing their decision. Their current intent is to punish Anna Reed's contracted beast. However, given today's events, they likely won't pursue it for now."
"I see.
What kind of punishment?"
Elliot Reed sighed in concern.
"It's the 10,000 laws punishment. I'll try to mitigate it, but—"
The seventh elder cast a sympathetic glance at Daniel Walker. Chapter 43, Taking You to See the Treasure. Daniel Walker blinked, finally understanding the good relationship between the seventh elder and Elliot Reed.
Ninth grandfather, what is the form of 10,000 laws?"
Elliot Reed's expression turned slightly strange, but before he could answer, the seventh elder explained.
"It's when all disciples of the Reed family, from top to bottom, attack you simultaneously. If you can withstand it, the matter will be resolved. If not, the punishment will continue until it ends."
Hearing this, Daniel Walker's eyes lit up, and he asked,
"Really?"
The seventh elder looked at him strangely and replied,
"Yes, because Randy Reed and the others said your defense is very strong, so they came up with this method in the end."
"That's great," Daniel Walker murmured to himself. "Huh?" The seventh elder thought he had misheard.
"Ahem, no, I mean, it's terrifying. But seventh elder, you're a kind person, so don't hold back on me. Go all out, so no one will criticize you,"
Daniel Walker said. The seventh elder was momentarily surprised, then chuckled and shook his head. He thought Daniel was scared and trying to flatter him, but unexpectedly, the boy turned out to be someone who considered others. The elder patted Daniel's head.
"Don't worry. All right, I'll take my leave now."
The seventh elder nodded at Elliot Reed before leading his people away. Elliot Reed calmly led Daniel Walker back to the courtyard. On the way, Daniel feigned sighs and complaints, but as soon as the door closed, the two exchanged glances and burst into laughter.
"Ha ha, ninth grandfather, I think the Reed family is truly amazing. You little rascal, don't get too cocky. Are you really okay?"
Elliot Reed shook his head.
I'm fine.
Daniel Walker grew a bit impatient. If he had known the punishment would be like this, he wouldn't have spent so much effort orchestrating the situation. No, it was still necessary. Anna had already reached the third stage and needed a cultivation method. The next day, Victor Reed was judged by the family, his entire cultivation abolished, and even his contracted beast was killed. Afterward, his entire family was erased from the Reed family's records and exiled. Daniel Walker felt a bit guilty about the little girl, but he didn't regret it. Soon after, the elders of the family indeed had no time to pay attention to Daniel Walker, as they were all busy figuring out how to handle the 10 top-tier techniques. And today was also the day scheduled to admire the blooming Snow White Night blooming Sirius. Anna Reed probably remembered this incident, so at dusk, she successfully broke through and advanced to the third stage. Anna! Daniel Walker saw Anna Reed stepping out and immediately rushed over.
Little dumpling.
Anna Reed was also very happy. She was now at the third stage.
By the way, little dumpling, has anyone in the family been giving you trouble these past 2 days?
Randy Reed wasn't someone to let things go easily, so Anna Reed was a bit worried. She looked at him.
Nothing much, these past 2 days.
Daniel Walker recounted the events within the family over the past 2 days. Then, he secretly called her into a room to give her a cultivation manual, but didn't tell her he had stolen it because Anna Reed was too kind-hearted. He feared she would feel burdened.
I copied this down during the chaos. At that time, Grandpa Ninth took me to watch the commotion, and you are a water element user, right?
Daniel Walker explained.
But
Anna Reed felt uneasy. This item held a high status within the family, and if she cultivated it,
it's fine. The family hasn't given you any cultivation techniques anyway. Just use this for now. No one will find out.
Daniel Walker earnestly persuaded her, and Anna Reed finally agreed to cultivate it.
Little dumpling. I'm here.
A loud voice suddenly rang out from outside. Daniel Walker and Anna Reed quickly put away the image stone and went outside. The Peacock King had come alone because Kevin Reed hadn't yet been able to arrange his matters and thus didn't come.
Why did you call me?
Here? The Peacock King curiously asked.
Ahem. Since you've given me so many gifts, we decided to give you something in return. Follow us. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. It's something beautiful.
Daniel Walker said.
Really?
The Peacock King was a bit surprised. This was the first time he had received a gift from someone else. Considering his flamboyant personality, not many people wanted to form deep connections with him. Anna Reed was very grateful to the Peacock King and Kevin Reed. At the very least, Kevin Reed had helped her this time. She wasn't someone who forgot kindness, and would always remember those who helped her. However, as the cave became narrower, the Peacock King grew increasingly uncomfortable.
I can't go any further,
the Peacock King said.
Why?
Anna Reed turned around. In terms of height, the Peacock King was actually a bit taller than her.
The cave is too narrow. What exactly is the gift? Can't you just bring it out?
He didn't want to dirty his feathers. Daniel Walker helplessly said.
What's the big deal? At most, you can use spiritual energy to shield yourself. If we couldn't get the gift out, we wouldn't have made you suffer like this.
Peacock King's eyes lit up.
That's right. I can use spiritual energy.
However, instead of using defensive techniques, he shrank his body down to the size of a palm, then flew up excitedly and said,
This works.
Let's go! Admiration flickered in Daniel Walker's eyes. Knowing magic was truly amazing. Being able to transform it will seem so convenient. If only he could grow bigger or smaller as he pleased. Peacock King noticed his admiration, flew over and said,
Do you want to learn this? I can teach you. It's really simple, though you might need 7th level spiritual energy.
He suddenly remembered that the artifact he gave Daniel Walker was only 5th level. However, his other artifact was too shabby, so he pondered for a moment and said,
All right then, I'll keep an eye out for a higher level spiritual energy storage artifact for you. No need. You've already given me one, and this artifact seems to hold more than just 5th level power. I had someone test it today. Even 6th level is fine, maybe even 7th level.
Daniel Walker quickly waved his hand. Initially, he intended to rely on Peacock King, but since the latter kept giving him things while he had nothing valuable to offer in return, he felt guilty.
It's no big deal. I already said I'd find one for you. I'm your big brother, after all.
Peacock King had made up his mind. As they spoke, they exited the cave. The snow-white night-blooming cereus flowers had yet to bloom, but the surrounding spiritual energy seemed denser, tightly concentrated around each flower. Daniel Walker even felt an urge to eat them, but managed to suppress it. After all, they came here to admire the flowers, not destroy them. Peacock King's eyes sparkled as he gazed at the flowers. There were hundreds of them, their buds still drooping, not yet in bloom. Only their stems and leaves swayed gently, as if absorbing and releasing spiritual energy. This place is truly beautiful, Peacock King praised. Indeed, Anna was the one who found this spot. Daniel Walker, seeing how much Peacock King genuinely liked it, felt delighted as well. Chapter 44. This is my fateful encounter. As I mentioned, the spiritual energy here has been sealed within a certain domain, seemingly just for these epiphyllum flowers. It appears someone has been cultivating them. Peacock King glanced around the mountain and spoke thoughtfully. Cultivating? Daniel Walker and Anna Reed exchanged glances. Could this place have an owner? If so, what if? Indeed, but this formation is quite ancient. Peacock King extended a wing, using the tip of a feather to touch a point on the rock wall. Instantly, golden rays of light spread outward from that point, strand by strand, illuminating the entire cave in a breathtaking display. Daniel Walker looked around appreciatively, noticing that the epiphyllum flowers on the ground seemed to quiver slightly, gradually lifting their stems. The full moon in the sky was also slowly moving to the center of the space above. They're blooming. The three of them eagerly watched the orderly scene unfolding before them. Each epiphyllum flower, as if by prior arrangement, turned toward the moon above. Golden light shimmered continuously on the surrounding rock walls. Across the entire Peach Mountain, gentle breezes carried extraordinarily pure spiritual energy, all converging at this spot. Within the mountain, faint silver specks began to appear on the epiphyllum flowers. At the moment the flowers bloomed in unison, they suddenly shattered. Daniel Walker was startled, but Peacock King patted him with a wing and said, "That's the spiritual essence of the 10,000 snow epiphyllum. The purest would base spiritual energy, highly beneficial for you." The scattered beams of light resembled snowflakes, sweeping past them in an instant before dissipating. The epiphyllum flowers bloomed to their fullest, their petals adorned with golden veins. The full moon above bathed the scene in its glow, which gradually turned golden as well. Peacock King's eyes widened as he suddenly felt a surge of power that made his blood boil, his heart pounding wildly. If his suspicions were correct, that dumpling had truly given him an extraordinary gift. The golden moonlight grew increasingly brilliant, while the flowers below swayed gently. A faint, sacred chant seemed to echo in the air. In the moonlight, a vague image of a Buddha statue appeared. Daniel Walker's eyes widened in disbelief. He even rubbed them with his claws, only to realize he wasn't imagining things. He turned to Anna Reed, who was equally stunned, then looked back at Peacock King. The Peacock King looked up at the full moon in the sky, just a little more to go. "Little dumpling, this is my opportunity. Perhaps I'm about to break through. Perhaps my master and I will have to leave soon, but rest assured, everything I've promised you, I will fulfill. This gift, I will definitely repay." The Peacock King lowered his head to look at Daniel Walker, his eyes filled with solemn determination. Daniel Walker nodded. Though he didn't understand, it seemed like this might be one of those legendary opportunities. After all, he'd read plenty of novels, but wasn't it usually only the protagonist who got lucky like this? So, who was the real protagonist here? He couldn't feel anything except for the moment when the spiritual energy of the 10,000 snow jade flower entered his body. He felt as though his body had been cleansed, the hair on his body became translucent, and his physical strength increased significantly. Just as everything within the mountain began to operate smoothly, a cloud suddenly appeared in the sky,
conveniently obscuring the full moon. The Peacock King's expression immediately changed, and the feathers on his tail stood on end.
Today, no one shall stop me from seeking the path of enlightenment.
Daniel Walker and Anna Reed were both overwhelmed by the aura emanating from him, forcing them to step back a few paces. Anna Reed reached out to hold Daniel Walker.
Will he be all right?
Daniel Walker shook his head, watching as each feather on the Peacock King began to emit a golden light. Then, he flew directly toward the open space at the mountain's peak, letting out a long roar. A beam of golden light shot out from him, heading toward the moon. It was an illusory image of a golden peacock feather. Daniel Walker heard the sound of Buddhist chants. He stared blankly upward. Was that the Peacock King's blessing? He didn't understand these things, but it was undoubtedly the first time he had witnessed such a breathtaking scene. Until now, the spells of other people and beasts he'd seen were just ordinary low-level techniques, at most manipulating spiritual energy of different elements. But this kind of power was something he was witnessing for the very first time.
Unfortunately, I can't eat it.
Daniel Walker clicked his tongue. If the Peacock King could grant him this move, how great it would be. He felt he might break through. The golden illusion of the peacock feather pierced through the clouds, instantly dispersing the mist. The moonlight once again bathed the area. This time, the Peacock King directly rushed into the Buddha statue that Daniel Walker had been gazing at. As it entered, the blooming Sirius flowers also completed their mission. Accompanied by the surrounding Sanskrit chants, they quietly withered, scattering across the mountains like an ethereal vision of flowers in a mirror or the moon reflected in water. Daniel Walker reached out to catch one of the petals, only to find that it was no longer a petal but pure spiritual energy. The energy immediately entered his body, causing him to narrow his eyes in comfort.
Anna, quickly, let's gather the petals.
Daniel Walker could no longer hold back his excitement. Anna Reed also realized the benefits and joined Daniel Walker in running around. However, neither of them managed to touch the night-blooming Sirius flowers. Even though they had withered, new ones quickly sprouted, and the flowers still shied away from human contact. These flowers, upon blooming, had already bestowed their blessings upon the viewers. They couldn't afford to be excessively greedy. Once everything quieted down, Daniel Walker and Anna Reed lay on the ground, both wearing expressions of satisfaction. Anna Reed had noticeably grown taller. Her pants had now become cropped. Daniel Walker, on the other hand, showed no physical changes, but he felt as though he was on the verge of a breakthrough. He just needed a sufficiently powerful magical attack to push him over the edge.
Is he going to be okay?
Anna Reed sat up, looking at the Peacock King hovering midair, enveloped in a golden glow, with a hint of worry.
What could possibly happen?
Daniel Walker wasn't worried in the slightest. The fleeting bloom of the Sirius for Vidya, the Peacock King as a descendant of the spell of the Peacock King's blessing, they were all tied to the Buddhist lineage.
Then,
Anna Reed glanced at the sky. It was already the fourth watch of the night, and she had no idea how long the Peacock King would take to finish.
Why don't we leave first? Let's go inform Uncle Reed,
Daniel Walker suggested, realizing that waiting here indefinitely might not be the best option. Anna Reed nodded and stood up, only then noticing her newfound height. Seeing her pants had shortened, she let out a small,
"Ah, what's wrong?"
Daniel Walker quickly turned to look at her.
It seems I've grown taller, but this is already my longest pair of pants.
Anna Reed felt like crying a little.
Who told you not to go shopping for clothes last time? A young lady, yet you don't even know how to make yourself look presentable. Sigh. How will you get married looking like this? You need to learn to treat yourself better.
Daniel Walker felt genuinely concerned for her. Anna Reed burst out laughing and said teasingly,
The way you're talking, anyone would think you're some old grandpa. You're just a little guy who stirs up trouble every day and makes everyone worry, yet here you are lecturing me.
Chapter 45. See Who's Shining. Daniel Walker chuckled and shook his head.
That's the truth, you know. Where I come from, there's a saying, women should love themselves, and if they like something, they should just buy it.
Though he didn't quite understand it himself. But looking at the adorable and charming Anna, he suddenly felt an urge to earn money just to shop for her. After all, girls should dress up and look beautiful, right?
Do all the panda girls in your place dress so well? I find it a bit hard to imagine.
Anna Reed pictured Daniel Walker in a dress and found the thought oddly amusing. Her eyes sparkled as she stared intently at Daniel Walker, contemplating the idea of putting him in a dress. Truly, no girl could resist the allure of making things beautiful, and there was always an inexplicable fondness for dressing up dolls, even if others couldn't quite understand it. Daniel Walker seemed to share a mental connection with her. While not entirely telepathic, he could sense the frightening idea forming in Anna Reed's mind.
Stop it right now!
Daniel Walker shouted.
Please, get rid of that bizarre thought, Anna. I'm a panda with dignity,
he said seriously. Anna Reed nodded with a hint of disappointment, but still respectfully replied,
All right, I won't do it. Don't worry.
Daniel Walker felt uneasy. Not now, perhaps, but what if she tried it later? No, he had to guide her properly. He needed to steer this girl on the right path, ensuring she didn't stray into strange ideas. They quietly returned to their little courtyard without disturbing anyone. However, they were unaware that tonight's commotion had already drawn the attention of many. The attack by the Peacock King was powerful enough to rival a level 9 expert's strike, dispersing clouds and catching the eyes of numerous witnesses. Some only saw a golden flash, while others noticed the faint illusion of a peacock feather within the golden light. Kevin Reed, upon sensing the Peacock King's attack, quickly left the Elder's Hall and rushed to Peach Mountain, but he couldn't find the Peacock King. The connection was still nearby, yet he couldn't pinpoint its exact location. This filled him with unease. The Peacock King was a well-behaved child who, for Kevin's sake, always suppressed himself, silently enduring bullying from weaker spirit beasts, and never recklessly using such powerful techniques. Something must have happened. If not for the faint telepathic message from the Peacock King, assuring him that everything was fine, he might have lost his patience by now. He didn't seek out Daniel Walker or the others, as he didn't want to involve them. Surely, someone within the family had already begun to suspect that the illusion was connected to the Peacock King. The next morning, the disciples of the Reed family went about their usual tasks. Most of the chatter revolved around Victor Reed, with no one mentioning the events of the previous night. Daniel Walker and Anna Reed were completely unaware of what had happened. For the first time, Daniel Walker accompanied Anna Reed to the dining hall. They arrived early, and only a few people were scattered around the space.
2 breakfasts, please.
Anna Reed handed over a silver coin and spoke politely. To her surprise, the man behind the counter looked troubled. Glancing around to ensure no one was watching, he lowered his voice and said,
Anna, don't you know the family is planning to disown you? Yesterday, the deputy clan leader gave explicit instructions.
Anna's face turned pale. She bit her lip and replied,
I didn't know.
About this, Uncle Wang. Please, just give me 2 portions of food. It's not that I don't want to. Fine, come here. Take this and leave quickly.
Uncle Wang, who had watched her grow up, couldn't bear to refuse. He handed her 2 portions of food despite his hesitation.
What are you doing?
Aunt Wang hurried over, her teeth clenched as if ready to shout, but holding herself back. She glared at Uncle Wang.
Go now.
Aunt Wang snatched the 2 portions of food away and waved Anna off. Anna Reed lowered her head, then held on to Daniel Walker and prepared to leave, gripping his hand tightly to prevent him from saying anything.
What's wrong with you? It's just some food for her. Uncle Wang's voice echoed behind them. It's not that I don't want to help her. Don't you think I know how pitiful she is? But look over there. They're watching everything. If you give her food, we'll be the ones packing up and leaving next. Well, even so, you can't just snatch it back. Anna Reed hugged Daniel Walker tightly and ran far away. Daniel, held firmly in her embrace, couldn't tell what expression she had at that moment. He only felt a gradually warm, wet sensation spreading on his head. Anna was crying. Daniel Walker tried to stretch his paw out of her chest, patting her as he said, Anna, it's okay. Let's go out and eat. Anna Reed, startled, loosened her tight grip. Daniel Walker finally took a deep breath, lifting his head to see her red, teary eyes. He raised his paw to touch her. Don't cry, I'm here. They must have a lot of nerve to kick you out. Daniel Walker snorted coldly. This was undoubtedly someone deliberately making things difficult. If they wanted to kick Anna out, they could have just said so. Why go through all this trouble? Our Anna is so beautiful. Who would have the heart to kick you out? Anna Reed immediately laughed and wiped her tears. She wasn't upset about being kicked out, nor because Aunt Wang had taken her food. She just felt, why did she always seem to cause trouble for others? Come on. Stop that right now. Anna, thinking like that is wrong. You should think, on what grounds do they deny you a meal? You paid for it too. Daniel Walker worried about Anna Reed's initial thoughts. But, no buts, Anna. Most people, when faced with such things,